Now, I mentioned earlier about cycling in Europe. Now, whether it's a dedicated cycling tour or you're part of another kind of trip and you just decide to jump on a bike for a day or so, believe me, even if you have reservations about cycling here, you're not a dedicated cyclist, it's something to do because they know how to do cycling in Europe. It's part of the culture and it's been in the heritage for a long, long time. And I really suggest that even if it's part of your tour, try and get on a bike in Europe because it's not just a great experience, it's more comfortable and it's a great way to see the place. The sights, sounds and smells, rolling hills, historic landmarks, just do it in your own time on the bike. How do you do it, though? If you want to do it full-time or even part-time, what route do you choose? How do you plan it? Andrew Bain recently returned from a bike tour of the Baltics, and he knows the easiest places to cycle through Europe. G'day, Andrew.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Now, tell us about the Baltic bike tour. What countries do you cycle through?
So the three Baltic countries are Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, sort of the old Soviet bloc over in the west there.
And that's still kind of opening up, really, isn't it, to travellers like us anyway, even though the place has been open since the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of European and Russian tourists there, but once you get out of the three main cities, you've pretty much got the place to yourself.
And what are some of the best routes to cover?
Well, for cycling, I mean, they're all against the Baltic Sea, so sticking to the coast is a beautiful way to go. Particularly in Lithuania, it's got the Curonian Spit, which is in its own way a bit of a natural wonder. You've got essentially a 100-kilometre line of sand dunes just hanging out in the sea.
Wow.
And there is a bike path that runs straight through the middle of it.
You're kidding. What's it made of? Is it tarred? Is it just dirt or what?
Yeah, it's mostly tarred.
Wow.
It's part of the only formed bike route in the three countries is this seaside cycle route, which is 200 kilometres long, and about 50 k's of that is on this spit.
And what else is on the spit? Like, are there places to stop and any buildings or anything, or is it just one long stretch that you go out and back on?
No, it's a bit of a holiday resort area, but it's a curious place because half of it belongs to Lithuania, and the bottom half belongs to a Russian enclave called Kaliningrad. So there's a big 70-metre sand dune you can stand on top of, and you're essentially on the border looking into Russia, and you've got a big Russian watchtower looking back at you.
Wow.
And then there's a whole load of amber museums there. It's kind of the heartland of amber mining.
Right. Which is, again, something that's kind of known, but not one of your high-up commodities in terms of, people taking tours and things like that. I mean, it's all undiscovered country for a lot of people in the West, or particularly Australia anyway. Yeah,
it's not a place we really think of when we think of Europe. But, there's a lot to offer there, and particularly on a bike, because the three countries are so flat.
And how do you form a tour? What is it made up of? How many people in the group and all those things?
The trip I went on, I joined a trip run by UTracks, and we had about 25 of us in the end, because they combined, there's a German group came along, and then there was an English-speaking group. We just tootled along each day. At the end of the day, it was finish at a hotel, or there'd be a support bus. So I might throw all the bikes on the bus and drive through to the next spot, and then start pedalling again the next day.
I presume they supply the bikes and all the gear, or what?
They do. They do. And there's the option even to get e-bikes if if...
I was going to ask you about that because, some people might be put off. They might enjoy cycling, but they might not be part of the lycra-clad, enthusiasts. So it wouldn't deter them, would it, to go on a trip like this?
No, absolutely not. This is a trip you could do with no cycling experience.
Right.
Each day you're doing 25 to 50 kilometres only. And if you do hire an e-bike, anytime you hit one of the very few hills, you press the button and away you go.
Yeah. And that's a key thing, I think, for some people who you certainly don't want to be inhibited by the thought of, a Tour de France sort of thing. That's a totally different kettle of fish.
Absolutely, yeah. This is kind of the polar opposite of a Tour de France push through the Alps or Pyrenees. This is just travel for pleasure.
Yeah, and what's the best time of year to go, do you think?
It's a summer destination. Again, like most of Europe, if you were to get there on the cusp, probably September, that's a great time to be there. Even into October, that's a very good time.
Is it very exy?
No, they're quite cheap countries. I mean, Estonia's is pretty advanced because it's fairly Scandinavian and it's always had Scandinavian ideas. and prices. But once you get down towards Lithuania, it's a very cheap place to travel.
How do they find out more about this, mate?
Well, if they were to go and look at UTracks, which I think is UTracks.com.au, and just search through for either any of those three countries, they'll be able to find it.
And I really stress that you don't have to be a cycling enthusiast. I don't know whether you were listening earlier, but I mentioned that even as part of a bigger European tour, to spend a day or 2 days on bicycles, the Europeans know how to do it. They know the right bikes. The bikes are usually beautifully looked after and actually are very comfortable to ride, no matter what your level. And it's something you should be, quite comfortable in doing if you feel like doing it.
Oh, for sure. I've cycled all over the world, and Europe's by far the easiest place to do it.
Yeah, they get it, don't they? Well, they're good at it, and they've been doing it for a long time.
It's part of their culture.
Yeah. I think that's kind of hard here, but that's a story for another day, to get people to understand that the whole bike car thing can actually work if you just know how to do it. But unfortunately for us, we're trying to transplant it in an infrastructure that's been decades anti-cycling, which makes it very hard. Andrew, it's been very interesting, mate, and I really encourage anyone to take it on. Traveller.com.au is where they can find more from you. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, thanks for that.
Andrew Bain, travel writer from Traveller.com.au. There you go. Seriously?